What's up, Meta Nerds? This video is a little bit different, but a lot of people ask us how we would rank all of the Star Wars movies. And although there are countless variables and personal opinions that go into making a list like this, I feel like it could really start a great conversation in the comment section. And it will let you know what I think about each of the 9 Star Wars films that are currently out. Not including the holiday special, Clone Wars animated movie, or any Ewok shenanigans. But like I always try to remind people, this is just our opinions of the films. And you need to remember, you're talking about a movie, a piece of media. So at its very worst, and hyperbolic nerds that like to scream on the internet, you really gotta trust me on this one. Bad media can't make your life any worse, or hurt you in any way. When a piece of media sucks, you're just supposed to move on. But if it is great, it can be something that you will cherish for the rest of your life, like most of us do with the Star Wars franchise. But that being said, let's jump into it. At number 9, I have to put The Force Awakens. I respect people that like and even love this film, as this is just a reminder that it's just our opinion, and not something to be taken too seriously. And I have to say, even at being number 9, when I rewatched this movie to prepare for watching The Last Jedi, and when I did this again before seeing The Last Jedi a second time, I definitely felt that it earned its place as a Star Wars film, and will only seem better as this new trilogy ends, and we can view the story as a whole. So if you like it already, that's cool. But just yet, there isn't a lot of memorable action scenes, and the fact that you even have Han in-universe making fun of the fact that it's just a bigger Death Star mirrored my own disappointments at the similarities between Episode 7 and Episode 4. I know that this was done on purpose, but I felt that Episode 1 was able to keep a lot of the same themes from Episode 4, while still giving us totally different vehicles, locations, and ways that they could defeat the enemy. So while it's funny that I can admit that this would be a good film objectively, when seeing where it fits into my list, I have to put this in last place. At number 8 is Attack of the Clones. I fell in love with this movie when I was a kid, but over the years I've opened myself up to the critiques and silliness of some of the plot issues, some of which were made even worse by scenes that were cut, which actually showed Anakin and Padme bonding. But all that being said, this movie has perhaps some of my most memorable scenes. Not impactful or meaningful like throwing down a lightsaber in front of 2 of the scariest people in the galaxy, but Episode 2 is just visually stamped into my mind for all time, with places like Kamino and Geonosis still being 2 of the coolest and most unique places that we ever visit in a Star Wars movie. The ships and vehicles introduced here are also some of the coolest in the entire Star Wars franchise. At number 7, I'm gonna put The Phantom Menace. I'm always conflicted if I should put this at number 8, switching the spot for Attack of the Clones. But the duel with Darth Maul, to me, was just more exciting than Dooku's and Yoda's. I don't know why, and like I said, I often go back and forth between these 2. But seeing the bright and beautiful planet of Naboo, I believe strengthens the gritty and cold feeling we got from the original trilogy, because we got to see how nice things were under the Republic, for some worlds at least, and how different it would become under Imperial rule. Seeing Coruscant was amazing, and we got our first intro to the unique droids of the CIS. It also should have been an example to The Force Awakens of how to make nods to and keep themes from Episode 4, while still making it incredibly creative. At number 6 is Rogue One. I really love Rogue One, and walked out of the theater amazed. I think this is in part because I didn't have crazy expectations, and got to just sit there and be entertained, you know, the way movies are supposed to be experienced, before the age of endless theories and feelings that your media experience needs to personally cater to every one of your needs. They brought back all kinds of stuff from the prequels and Clone Wars TV show, while also giving us the gritty, lived-in vibes of the original movies. Jedha was amazing to see, and expanded upon our knowledge of how the Force was observed by different people, not just the Jedi. And of course, seeing how the Empire had to destroy countless families and strip worlds of their resources in order to get the Death Star fully operational. Of course, we get all of the modern special effects, but every movie has that nowadays, so we really gotta give credit to Rogue One for how they used the technology that was available to make the Battle of Jedha, the destruction of Jedha, and the Battle of Scarif all some of the most amazing scenes in any Star Wars movie. At number 5 is The Last Jedi. Despite the hyperbolic trolls, there are legitimate critiques of this movie. I thought the whole Canto Bight scene was a waste of time, and I get that it was supposed to show the development of Finn, but I think Canto was just boring visually. None of the aliens really stood out to me, and I thought even the casino building itself seemed dull, nowhere near the opulence you would expect for these clientele, and a missed opportunity that could have showed us all kinds of amazing visual effect eye candy that would only fit in a galaxy-renowned pleasure palace. That aside, I loved the way Snoke was eliminated, keeping the focus on Kylo and Rey, and giving us a really cool opportunity to see what it would have been like if Vader killed the Emperor to save Luke, but still remained in the dark side, and actually took control of the Empire. I actually like that the idea of balance was not that Rey would use the dark side and the light side, as I agree with many others that even in the Knights of the Old Republic, which Rian Johnson bought when it came out by the way, the point of all the Star Wars films was to show us that the Jedi were flawed when they didn't hold out hope for those who dipped into the dark side, and that they shouldn't have ostracized them. But that doesn't mean the dark side is a tool that should be used as a means to an end, so I am happy that they didn't go in that direction. I believe Luke thinking about killing Kylo actually makes sense, because he was able to refuse fighting Vader, but that was a decision he could make for himself between father and son, whereas Jedi Master Luke, the only guy keeping the Jedi Order alive, now has a responsibility to the rest of the galaxy. Luke did not create Vader, but he feared that in a time with no Sith in the entire galaxy, the first time that this was true for thousands upon thousands of years, Luke might have been the one to have trained and made powerful the kid that would grow up to become the next Vader. The temptation becomes even more believable when you know that Snoke exists and is able to invade people's minds. And so the fact that Luke was able to resist giving in to this perhaps even greater fear, combined with the fact that he confronts the First Order on Crate, not like a superhero flying around with a lightsaber destroying entire AT-M6s. That would have really felt silly to me. But he confronts them like a truly enlightened Jedi, and makes Luke's character even stronger in my opinion. At the number 4 spot is Revenge of the Sith. Episode 3 gives us a couple of the best battles and lightsaber fights in Star Wars history, opening up with action and showing perfectly how fear and good intent can lead one to the dark side. It hits the two most important things in a Star Wars film: action-packed escapism, and timeless moral lessons. I didn't feel like there were some of the pacing issues with The Last Jedi, and to me, none of this movie actually felt boring or truly pointless. Of course, there was some CGI silliness, but Episode 3 has some of the most memorable scenes, and quotable lines that each capture their character amazingly. At the number 3 spot is A New Hope. The nostalgia is strong with this one. Like most, even though I'm not old enough to have seen this in theaters, the VHS copy of Episode 4 has sent me on a long path that I know made me a better person, and of course inevitably brought about this YouTube channel. It blows me away that some people forget that there was a time when we didn't know any of the lore surrounding Star Wars, and we still loved it. As a movie, it may be slower paced when compared to modern style, but Lucas made this film not knowing if he would get a shot at another Star Wars, and thus it makes a great movie that can stand alone by itself and tell a complete, self-contained story. Every scene in this movie either helps pull you into this world or is crucial to the plot, with most scenes hitting both. This timeless movie is what made me fall in love with Star Wars, but luckily, in my opinion, the original trilogy movies get even better from here on out. At the number 2 spot is Empire Strikes Back. This is another one that I go back and forth over, wondering if it should be at number 1, but I'll leave it at the number 2 spot, from a perhaps unfair critique that it is in the middle of a trilogy, and so it doesn't have those same character payoffs like we get in Episode 6. Like I said, that's not even really a critique, that's just the nature of how a trilogy works, combined with the unique fact that Lucas had to make Episode 4 self-contained, because it wasn't certain that there would ever actually be a Star Wars trilogy. But anyways, everywhere we go in this movie is amazing, visually distinct, and beautifully done. I think Cloud City is one of my favorite places in all of Star Wars, and a warning to the OG fans of the OT, but I believe the first time I saw this movie was the remastered version on VHS, and so these extra Cloud City scenes really made it feel like it was a living sci-fi city that was just so incredibly cool, and then you throw in some of the best scenes of Boba Fett and the Slave One, and it definitely made me a lifelong fan. So it hits all of the unique, action-packed escapism, but we also get some of the best explanations of the Force, and we really start to pull in some of that lore that makes Star Wars even greater than its special effects. Obviously, no wasted scenes or slide plots here, and all of the characters are made more interesting in this film, and by incorporating those timeless psychological motifs. This movie made it so that a green puppet is one of the wisest individuals I've ever experienced, even up to this day. And my number 1 spot is, of course, Return of the Jedi. My favorite Star Wars movie of all time, and a couple of years back, when rewatching this after a long time of not seeing it, while trying to get a friend into Star Wars, it hit me pretty hard that I think of myself as damn Luke Skywalker. You have friends and family that make bad decisions and go down the real world equivalent of the dark side. And looking back, sometimes I wonder why was it that I was able to resist temptations when so many others fell. Not gonna lie, I was literally almost brought to tears watching Luke throw down his lightsaber, resist fighting, and hold out faith for Vader. I wasn't consciously thinking about Star Wars for a long portion of my life, but I really think that Luke's character was a factor in making me a better person. I know that doesn't seem like a normal movie critique, I mean, I didn't even mention CGI singers in Jabba's palace, which sadly are also imprinted on my brain for all time. But besides those minor issues which weren't even in the original film, there aren't any other scenes in this movie that to me feel like a waste of time. And although Ewoks killing stormtroopers doesn't make sense, don't even try to explain it away. All the lore on stormtrooper armor wasn't created back then, or thought of, or even cared about at the time. But it's okay, because the point is to be visually cool and have universal psychological motifs. And if you know the channel, you know I love looking inside of ships, vehicles, and weapons, but it's really not what Star Wars is all about. It's the execution of the story of Anakin and Luke Skywalker that is done so perfectly in this film that someday, when the aliens discover our nuclear wasteland of a planet and sift through the rubble to learn more about us, I hope they find a copy of the original trilogy and write down in the history books that this was our modern mythos. So that's our list, all 9 of the major Star Wars movies, but I'm sure nobody agrees with me on every one of these points. In fact, I hope you guys don't, as we all experience Star Wars in different ways, depending on when and what order we saw the movies, and even what's going on in our own lives. So I definitely want to see what your guys' list was in the comments down below. And to see this list from a different point of view, you guys should definitely head over to Net Alliance's channel and be sure to check out the ranked list that he made as well. But that's it for our ranked list of the 9 current major Star Wars movies. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want to check out our social media, or ways that you can help support this channel, be sure to check out the description down below. If you want to see more, be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so that you get notifications. But more important than all that, remember, ignore the negative Nancys and enjoy whatever Star Wars movie you want. And the Force will be with you, always.